The 49ers get an expected win over the Titans, which certainly doesn't hurt them in the NFC playoff picture. We'll discuss how this game unfolded on today's 49K Post-Game Live.
You're listening to the 49 Carats podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats podcast. I'm your host, Steph. It is Sunday, December 14th. The 49ers just wrapped up their Week 15 game against the Titans. And as expected, coming off their bye week, going up against this struggling Titans team, the 49ers get the job done. 37-24, the final score. Now, this game is interesting, though, because I feel like we maybe expected that it would have gone a different way. It had some ebb and flows, right? Like, it had moments where, you know, the momentum hadn't really been decided yet. And there are also moments where it felt like 49ers had all the momentum, and then other moments where, you know, Titans got a bit of a spark and they got some points up, and it was like a 10-point game a little more times than I would have maybe liked. But, you know, at the same time, I mean, the 49ers still get it done. And I do have to say, Brock Purdy looked great today. I think the entire offense looked pretty great today. Brock Purdy, 295 passing yards, 3 total touchdowns, and we got a breakout game from Ricky Pearsall since he's come back from his injury, right? It was a slow going for him, but this after the bye week, it seemed like him and Brock Purdy really reconnected, and it seemed like Kyle Shanahan really made it a point to get him involved in this one. He finished with 6 catches and 96 yards. A couple times in this one where it looked like, well, it didn't look like. Ricky Pearsall did exit a couple times with an apparent injury. The first one was an ankle injury. Second time, it was a knee injury. And I'm more concerned about the knee injury because he's had knee injuries before this season. You guys recall the PCL that he struggled with this year. So we'll see what comes of that if Kyle Shanahan gives us an update on that. But for now, we'll continue talking about this game. Now, as we enter towards the end of this season, every game just feels that much more important for everybody, right? Especially in an NFC picture where a lot of teams still battling out for seeding and all that. Funny enough, you know, the Bears won their game in the early window. So briefly, in like the few hours before the 49ers game ended, the Bears had moved up to the 6th seed after they won in the morning. However, because the 49ers did win their game, you know, they got right back to that 6th seed. So no worries there. The 49ers still hold that spot. But there are a lot of things that I think we were keeping tabs on today, especially in this afternoon window while the 49ers were playing. The Rams were playing against the Lions, and the Seahawks were playing against the Colts. Now, the Colts, of course, we know Phillip Rivers had to be the starting quarterback today. But the reason that, you know, I think we were all kind of on pins and needles was because that game was a lot closer than, you know, I think we would have expected it to be. And so you end up with, let me see just the final score. Right? It came down to the wire, and the Seahawks won in walk-off fashion, even though, you know, the Colts pretty late in that game, they had a field goal to put them in the lead, but the Seahawks ended up winning that one 18-16, because what would have happened if both Seattle and the Rams lost, which at one point, you know, earlier, both teams were losing, both the Rams and the Seahawks. Had they both lost, the 49ers would have been tied for first place in the NFC West. And obviously that would have been huge for them. But unfortunately, both the Rams and the Seahawks win their respective games. As far as the Rams go, you know, they beat the Lions as well, 41-34. So it's going to have to wait, you know, another week if anything gets going. The good news is Seahawks and Rams play each other next week. So, you know, 49ers have a chance to at least leap over not leap over, but yeah, I mean, they could move up in the NFC West picture at least. And we're always keeping tabs on other things around the NFC as well. The Broncos uh, beat the Packers. That's certainly, also good for the 49ers. And another thing to keep an eye on there, Micah Parsons exited that game with a non-contact knee injury. So that's something that we'll want to keep tabs on. Tampa Bay played on Thursday, and they ended up, I think, so they're 7-7. Now they're tied with the Panthers because the Panthers lost to the Saints today. Saints are spoiling some things, shaking some things up in the NFC. Excuse me, in the NFC South. And so that's interesting. Just Bucks and Panthers are 7-7. So as it stands, looking at the NFC West picture after these afternoon games have ended, you got the Rams still in that 1 seed. You got Bears the 2nd seed. Eagles 3rd seed. They beat the Raiders pretty handedly today, and they were like all showboaty and feeling good about it. Sure, pal, but it's the Raiders, okay? Like, this doesn't necessarily mean anything. The Eagles annoy me. They do this far too much where they look very fraudulent, but they continue winning. All right. We'll see in the playoffs. 4th place, Tampa Bay Bucks, because of, their in conference, in their division record, they still hold the top spot in the NFC South at 7-7. Seahawks, that 5th seed. 49ers improved to 10-4, remaining the 6th seed. Packers are the 7th seed at 9-4 and 1. So yeah, this was a pretty interesting week for all the NFC movement. 49ers keep their spot. But of course, winning it, even if they don't move, is a good thing. It's something the 49ers needed to do, especially coming off this bye week. And again, just looked like this offense for most of this game, really were on their game. And Brock Purdy looked sharp. One thing that they mentioned on the broadcast that I most definitely would have to agree with, Brock Purdy, they talked about the anticipatory throws that he was making, throwing with anticipation. That's good Brock right there. That's what made Brock his money. You know what I mean? And I feel like the last 2 weeks, we've seen that with Brock where he just looks more comfortable. The timing and rhythm, everything seemed to be there. And again, you get Ricky Pearsall back in the fold. Ricky Pearsall doesn't have any trouble getting open, and so knowing when he's about to get open, hitting those throws, and then finding George Kittle, Jawan Jennings, like all those guys had big games. I'm going to say something that I think is somewhat concerning. And RJ, thank you so much for the super chat because this is exactly where I wanted to go. He says, the defense stresses me out. No lead ever feels safe. Well, the 49ers, I think this defense had some pretty good games leading up to the bye as far as like points allowed and things like that. You played the Cardinals and you played the Panthers and then the Browns. And I felt like, the 49ers had pretty good defensive performances then. But then you get into this game and you play the Titans, which, if you guys watched my preview show, or just have paid attention to the NFL at all, this is a very, very struggling very struggling offense for the Titans. A lot of young players, barely have a run game. RJ, the biggest thing that concerned me is the run defense today. And that's because Tony Pollard and this Titans run game just hasn't been really much of a thing this year for them because they usually don't have leads and the run game is just not really efficient enough to keep them in games. Well, what was interesting is that the Titans looked to be very comfortable with running the ball in this game despite being down, and it's because they were having success with it in this one. And I really just don't like that. Tony Pollard averaged 7.4 yards per carry on his 14 carries. He went over 100 yards, 14 carries, 104 yards, rushing touchdown. He had a long of 22. Tajay Spears had 3 carries for 34 yards, average of 11.3 yards per carry. That is very concerning to me that this 49ers rushing defense did not look good. Taking bad angles, still saw some missed tackles. And this is something that, Robert Saleh sort of explained that, the bye week would probably benefit the 49ers, and I'm sure it did, right, to a certain extent, but certainly didn't seem to absolve the issue of, missed tackles. And I still have some concerns over this run defense. When you are set to play some teams with much better running games, the Colts with Jonathan Taylor, the Bears with Ben Johnson and DeAndre Swift and Monangai, like, those guys have they will have an opportunity to, just run all over this 49ers defense if they're going to look anything like they did today against this Titans offense and their running backs. I mean, Tajay Spears and Tony Pollard aren't world beaters. Like, they're, at least not this season, Pollard has not been all that efficient. So for the 49ers to allow 7.4 yards per carry to him today, concerning. It's an underlining concern that I have. Obviously, I'm happy about the win. 49ers, for the most part, cruised to this win, right? But something that I'm going to be worried about going into the next 2 games for the 49ers. Now, like I said, the offense played, really well today. I think so. Let's kind of just go over it here. How this game kind of went down. The 49ers started their first drive. It was a 70-yard drive. That first drive is when Pearsall got hurt the first time. They called it an ankle injury. He did return for the second drive, but he missed most of that drive because he got the first catch and, he got drop tackled or hip drop tackled on his first catch and, had to go to the blue tent and get checked out. But he came back for the next drive. Kittle, got going pretty early in this game. He had 2 back-to-back first down catches. And the 49ers, I think the name of this game for the 49ers is the third down and red zone efficiency. Now, I know as the game progressed to the third down efficiency, like, if you look at it now, they were 9 of 15, right? Now, there was a point, and I think even at halftime, they had only not converted 1 third down that they had been in. I think it was like, they were like 5 or 6 or something like that, or maybe 6 or 7 in third down conversions in the first half. So, they were moving the ball pretty effectively, extending drives and things like that. And then also the other name of the game for the 49ers was their efficiency in the red zone, which has been a thing for them these last few weeks, right? And there were 4 of 6 in the red zone. And really, especially in the first half, they were all efficient. I think the only field goals that they had were pretty much at the end of it. So, yeah, a really strong – oh, actually, yeah, they had a field goal in the first half too. But a really strong, game from the 49ers and this offense. And – Purdy getting everyone involved. Like I said, I thought Purdy looked really good, going through his reads, extending, plays with his legs. If you guys watched my preview show, I did kind of mention going into it that I could see Purdy having a big game on the ground because anytime this Titans team has played a quarterback even remotely mobile, they've given up a lot of scramble yards to them. And so we know Purdy, loves to scramble. He doesn't hesitate if he does find those holes. And so he ended up having 7 rushes for 44 yards. And the long of 26 happened. Let's see, when did that happen in this game? That was in the third quarter. And someone posted this, that 26-yard scramble was the longest 49ers run by quarterback, 49ers quarterback since 2016 when Colin Kaepernick was the quarterback then. So 26 yards for Purdy. And that was the one where he like had the little pump fake, which always gets defenders, right? You see a defender jump up in the air and Purdy takes off for a few extra yards. And then you see him give I think it was Barton on the Titans, gives him a little boop before he steps out of bounds. So just a fun and loose Brock Purdy out there, and you love to see it because it just looks like he's comfortable being out there again. Maybe it was the injury immediately after coming back where maybe it wasn't all there, all clicking, but I feel like this offense really is rocking on all cylinders at this point now. So it's really great to see. And so let's talk about the rest of how this game unfolded. So in the second quarter, the 49ers also have another long drive. And, Purdy finds Demarcus Robinson on a scramble out of the pocket, keeps his eyes upfield. That one was a 29-yarder. That one was really nice. Kittle got another first down after forcing a missed tackle. I feel like Kittle forced a lot of missed tackles in this one. That was the 24-yard play for Kittle. And then the throw to Pearsall in the end zone, incomplete, but they were called for DPI. Second and goal. McCaffrey gets the rushing touchdown. And then the 49ers lead 14-3. But then the Titans scored. So that's like, again, like the momentum did shift a couple of times, right? And I think there was the time where the 49ers turned it over. Brock Purdy, like he got hit from behind, or the ball got hit from behind, and that was deemed a fumble. That also felt like another time where the Titans kind of regained some momentum, right? And I think as of late, the Titans have gotten a little bit better. Like naturally, as the season has gone on, you have so many rookies, Cam Ward and the two rookie receivers, right? I think as the season has gone on, they've gotten a little bit better. So I'm hoping that the success that the Titans did have on offense is kind of a result to that. But again, I do have some concerns, right? I have a couple of other concerns. It was fun to see Jeffrey Simmons get a touchdown. Anytime there's a big man touchdown, I celebrate that. But I do have some just underlying things on the defensive side that I hope can get corrected. Getting Tatum Bethune back, I think, will make a difference. And Jordan Elliott didn't play this game because he got hurt in pregame warmups. I believe they said it was a knee injury, so we'll see if we get an update on that. But I think Jordan Elliott could have made a big difference in this one. I was also disappointed with the pass rush, right? I was expecting that the 49ers would have at least one sack on Cam Ward. And he moves around in the pocket. He's not a statue, right? But he's the most sacked quarterback in the NFL. So 49 sacks that he's taken this season, and the 49ers didn't have any. So, I think that just goes to show where this pass rush is at. I thought it was something that was improving. They did get close a couple times, right? They did flush him out of the pocket, but ultimately couldn't get anything to show for it. Now, there were also a couple of opportunities for the 49ers to come away with picks. Like one was to Mustafa, easiest interception you could probably have, couldn't secure it on the way down. And then Jair Brown, it was a low throw. Like Jair Brown had to kind of dive for it, but he couldn't corral that one in either. So, you'd love to see those little things kind of change in the 49ers' favor and them get those turnovers. But maybe next week. Let's look at just some of the final stats in the box score for the 49ers. So as mentioned, Brock Purdy had a pretty sharp day, 23 of 30, 295 yards, 3 touchdowns. He took 2 sacks for 3 yards lost. So not too bad there. And his passer rating 140.3. Christian McCaffrey, bit of a quieter day, like he he was a late addition to the injury report. He reported some back soreness or back tightness, I guess, on Saturday. And so, he was questionable, but he ended up playing. But there were moments and there were like a couple of drives where, they had Brian Robinson in there instead of McCaffrey. So 22 carries, 73 yards for McCaffrey on the ground, 3.3 yards per carry. Still not very efficient on the ground. He did have one rushing touchdown as well. And McCaffrey, only one catch for McCaffrey today. I feel like today was a concerted effort to maybe use some of your other weapons. Like, again, we mentioned Pearsall, right? And shout out to KP because he mentioned Pearsall as a breakout candidate in the preview show on Friday as well. And, lo and behold, we saw him go off for 96 yards on 7 targets. So, yeah, I feel like they wanted to get the pass game going through other players, get a little more vertical, right? And so Pearsall, huge part of that. George Kittle as well, 8 catches, 88 yards for him, a touchdown on 9 targets. Juwan Jennings, 3 catches, 2 of them were touchdowns. So that's how his day went. And even Demarcus Robinson had a couple catches in this game as well, Kendrick Bourne. So 49ers were spreading the ball around. You do love to see that. As far as the defense goes, Mustafa had 10 tackles. Curtis Robinson had pass deflected at one point. Cleveland Farrell had a quarterback hit. D. Winters, I thought, played pretty well today. He had a tackle for loss in this one. But, aside from that, like I said, the defense, there were some things I think to clean up. There was that there were 2 plays that really stand out to me. Like there was the one to Van Jefferson, Cam Ward to Van Jefferson downfield. That was like the 43-yard in which, Jefferson got hurt. Then there was another one, I want to say like a little bit earlier. Well, there were a couple of instances like where Van Jefferson was like wide open, but thankfully Cam Ward overthrew him. So they had to go for a field goal that they missed, thankfully, but he was open. Like there was no one around him, and the Titans just couldn't really capitalize there. Then it was the touchdown Cam Ward to Gunnar Helm for 34 yards, and I saw people noting this, right? The fact that it was pretty much the same concept that the Browns scored on against the 49ers in week 13, right? So you see the Titans do the exact same thing, and they score on it. So expect teams to continue to run that same play, the same concept until the 49ers defense tightens up and defends it the way it's supposed to be defended. But I think there's a couple things still to work through. And, Phillip Rivers, 44 years old, he's an old man, but no offense to the 44-year-olds. I just mean for a quarterback, he's an old man. But I think even still, you can't go into that game and just assume that it's going to be a cakewalk because, it's Phillip Rivers. I mean, the Colts had the Seahawks, ready to lose that game as well. And they still have Jonathan Taylor, who is one of the best running backs in the entire league. So, yeah, some things to tighten up, but obviously happy with how the 49ers performed. And thank goodness, tomorrow we're going to be back I've been doing the Monday shows, but Weston's going to be back for Player of the Week show, and it should be a good one. We love talking about those after a win, and I think there's a number of players who perform pretty well in this one. So if there's one player you have in mind especially, make sure you tune in to tomorrow's show so you can help us vote for 49K Player of the Week. But all right, y'all, I'm going to let you guys go. And make sure you guys like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Audio listeners, make sure you leave a rating, leave a review, hit that notification bell so you know when I go live. Again, that's going to be tomorrow, so make sure you guys tune in. But for now, have a good rest of your Sunday, folks. Peace.